Welcome to Joint Session Diverse Voices in New York State Cannabis, the podcast where policymakers, legislators, thought leaders, licensees, and advocates come to discuss the evolving landscape of cannabis in New York and beyond. I'm Herb Barbot, former Director of Operations in New York's Office of Cannabis Management. Each episode, we bring you in-depth conversations with key voices shaping policy, business, and advocacy, plus expert insights on the latest developments impacting the industry. And now for the episode. Welcome to episode 4 of season 2 of Joint Session. This is Herb Barbot, and in this licensee highlight episode, we'll speak with Kristy Zielinski, owner of High Tide Dispensary in Lancaster, New York. But first, let's take a spin around this week's news. The California Department of Cannabis Control announced last week that the California Supreme Court granted its request and depublished a California Court of Appeals decision from January that suggested the state's cannabis regulations were unlawful because cannabis is federally illegal. As a result, the Court of Appeals decision will have no effect as precedent, the department said. We are pleased the court agreed to address the Court of Appeal decision at the Department of Cannabis Control's request, supporting California law and its legal cannabis industry, said DCC Director Nicole Elliott. Now, staying in California, both proponents and opponents of legislation to keep California's cannabis excise tax at 15% ramped up efforts to build support for their side. For context, after the state repealed its tax on cultivators in 2022, it required that the excise tax increase over time to make up for that lost revenue. Right now, the tax is set to increase to 19% in July. Two bills in play this legislative session, AB 564 and AB 8, include language to keep the tax at 15% of the gross receipts of any retail sale by a cannabis retailer. Opponents of efforts to kill the tax hike argue that it's a broken promise. Proposition 64 promised to invest in healthier communities. With a significant budget deficit and federal funding for children and environmental programs dwindling, now is the time to protect, not slash, these critical investments, said Lynn Silver, the director of an organization called Getting It Right from the Start. On the other hand, proponents of keeping the tax as is argue that the state's legal industry is struggling and higher taxes will only worsen the situation. California should do everything it can to stabilize the regulated market, and AB 564 offers a lifeline to save businesses from bankruptcy and consumers from the health and safety dangers of the illicit market, said Alex Friedman, president of the California Cannabis Operators Association. To no one's surprise, Virginia's governor has vetoed adult use sales. Last month, Virginia lawmakers sent adult use sale bills to Governor Glenn Youngkin, but as Youngkin had vetoed adult use sale the year before, he was widely expected to do so again. This week, Youngkin vetoed the adult use bills on his desk. In his veto message, he stated, the proposed legalization, which was vetoed last year, would establish the framework for retail marijuana, which endangers Virginians' health and safety, he wrote. Addressing the inconsistencies in enforcement and regulation in Virginia's current laws does not justify expanding access to cannabis following the failed paths of other states. He continued, our local and state law enforcement agencies lack the necessary funding and staffing to effectively manage the emergence of a cannabis industry. Close quote. So rather than providing that funding and staffing, he'd prefer his constituents travel to D.C. and Maryland to get their legal cannabis. The Minnesota Office of Cannabis Management announced on Tuesday that it sent adult use rules to an administrative law judge for final approval. The ALJ has 14 days to approve the rules or send them back. Once the rules are approved and published in the state register, the Minnesota OCM can start to issue cannabis business licenses. We've reached a crucial milestone, said OCM Interim Director Eric Taubel in the announcement. These rules lay the foundation to ensure Minnesotans can have confidence in a safe, well-regulated cannabis market. This rulemaking process started last summer, and regulators have made revisions according to public comment. The adult use cannabis law was passed in August of 2023, and so far just under 200 social equity applicants have received preliminary approval for certain license types, including microbusiness, wholesaler, transporter, lab, and delivery. For other license types that have a limit, such as cultivator, manufacturer, and retailer, the state will hold lotteries for all applicants, social equity in general, later this year. To date, there are no state licensed dispensaries open in Minnesota. The intersection of cannabis and trucking is the focus of a new white paper released this week by Fleetworthy and FreightWaves. The paper is called Cannabis, Compliance, and Driver Retention: The Challenges and Opportunities for Fleets in a Changing Legal Landscape. And it looks specifically, as its title suggests, at the difficulties keeping transportation workers on the job with drug testing requirements in place amid federal prohibition. The crux of the issue lies in the disconnect between state-level legalization and federal regulations, the report notes. Professional truck drivers are caught in a regulatory gray area where using a legally purchased product in one state could lead to immediate job disqualification under federal law. This confusion complicates recruitment and retention efforts in an industry already struggling with driver shortages. Ultimately, until federal laws change, and perhaps still after they do, the best course, according to the report, is for the industry to focus on strict compliance. Matt Gaetz, one-time nominee for Attorney General, former House Representative, and all-around putz, is stumping for rescheduling. According to Gaetz, Trump has long been a champion of cutting through bureaucratic red tape, and his support for rescheduling cannabis is another example of his commitment to common-sense reform. By backing this move, he stands up for patients, small businesses, and especially our veterans. It is crucial that our federal agencies follow through on this effort and finally align federal cannabis policy with the will of the American people, Gaetz wrote in an op-ed in the Tampa Bay Times. Let's get this done and continue to fight for full cannabis reform, he concluded. Forgive me if I don't believe any of this. In New York, a judge dismisses a class action complaint against New York City's unlicensed shop enforcement. Last year, more than 24 unlicensed cannabis sellers that had been targeted in New York City's enforcement efforts sued the city. The shops argued that their closure was unconstitutional. Last week, a judge granted the city's motion to dismiss. Given the low risk of erroneous deprivation of due process, he wrote, and the substantial government interest in protecting public health and safety, the factors weigh in favor of defendants. Thanks to Cannabis Wire for the news. Check out Cannabis Wire at cannabiswire.com. I'd like to welcome Kristy Zielinski to Joint Session. Kristy is the owner of High Tide Dispensary in Lancaster, New York, somewhere up north and out west near Buffalo. She's also a full-time employee at the New York State Liquor Authority. I first heard from Kristy last fall when I received a message from her. She was telling me that she was enjoying the podcast, but also how much it had helped her while she was awaiting getting her OCM retail dispensary license. So, of course, I had to speak to her. Welcome, Kristy.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
So, Kristy, how do you get this all done?
I wake up really early and I go to bed really late and I don't eat. I sit at a desk on a computer all day long.
So how was the podcast helpful to you while you were waiting?
Honestly, I would listen to it while I was driving to work early in the morning, and every single episode I was like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, okay. So there were so many different things just listening to the first one, just listening to everybody that worked at the OCM and, how it started, what was going on, every single different avenue that was happening, how and why it was taking so long, or, just different things that we didn't know. Because obviously, as a business owner, people don't realize that whatever agency you're going through, there's no letter going out. There's nothing that, we're going to be told. You have to go to that website and keep up with it. And, we would do that, but still there wasn't that much information. So your podcast was really the information that we needed to hear. And I happened to fall upon it from actually a vendor. So it was really great to have that insight while I was waiting to be licensed. So every single episode just kind of gave me something a little bit more that I was kind of looking for, not even knowing that I was looking for, but just, all of a sudden going, oh, okay, that makes sense, writing it down, going, oh, that makes sense. And, it was great because It's crazy. This world, the retailers, so I have a retail dispensary. The retailers, we can't it's hard. We don't really talk to each other, you know? I have one friend that owns a retail dispensary, but I feel bad going, "Hey, can I ask you another question?" You know, because we're so busy. But there's nobody else that we can really turn to. So you really were that beacon that helped me, like,
Mm.
you know, when I didn't have anything else, to be
No, thank you.
honest.
That was great to hear, so I appreciate that as well. So why cannabis? I know you previously owned a limo company.
Yeah.
Um, why cannabis?
Because honestly, I couldn't open up a bar, working for the liquor authority. So,
And you couldn't open up a bar because you work at the state liquor authority.
correct. So working at the state liquor authority, that's one of the things they say is, you know, you cannot, obviously, I couldn't even work at Target because they sell liquor. So,
Mm.
um, my husband had a friend that opened up a dispensary and he was like, "Do you want to try this?" So I won't lie, and it sounds so crazy. I owned the limo company for so long. It's something that I knew, and then I had to get a job. I mean,
Mm.
after all of that, so I went out and got the state job, and I work for the people, giving them their licenses. I love what I do, but it's so hard not working for myself. So it was like something different, something new, and I think it had only been a new industry for maybe what, 5 years, not even at that point. And so I was like, well, sure, why not? I mean, nobody else, and there's nobody to ask about it, but why the heck not? So we tried, and here we are. So it was something that we just wanted to try getting into, and we were lucky enough to get into it.
Mm. So at the state liquor authority, the SLA, you're a license examiner. So how do you think that was helpful, or was it helpful when it came time for you to apply for a license yourself at the Office of Cannabis Management?
So, a lot of people hire reps, and literally that's what I do all day long is examine and go through the licenses, the applications, and I didn't have to hire anybody. I saved myself, you know, the only thing I could do is that's the only part I saved myself money on. I was able to go through it and understand it. There were a couple things that I wasn't quite sure on, but you know, I was able to fill out the application. The TPI was the only thing we don't have at the SLA. But other than that, everything else, I mean, was very similar. The nice thing that the OCM had that the SLA does not have is everything you guys have, you just upload. The SLA is still paper applications. We're working our way towards that, going all full digital and not having the paper apps. But everything you do is just apply and upload it. And so it was really, honestly, it was simple. Submitting to the municipality, we do the same thing, you know, so it was really easy to just kind of figure it all out.
So what did your family say? What did you were talking about your parents a little while ago? What did they say when you said, we want to invest our time and money in cannabis?
They kind of laughed and they said, "Good luck." But my father, he also, so when I started the limo company, my father owned it. So I was in it since I was 8. So he knows that business is my thing. Because he was the greatest help, you know, that's where I got it from. So he was like, "Yeah, I don't know anything about this, but good luck. But if anybody's gonna do it, you'll figure it out."
Hmm.
And as it started to really come to fruition, and it started getting, you know, more like it really was happening,
Hmm.
he got more and more excited. So every day that like the shop was becoming the shop, he would sit there and he was like, "This is really cool." And having a CDL since I think he was 19, he was never allowed to touch anything. So, you know, we got a sample one day and I was like, "Dad, do you want a joint?" He's like, "I can't. I can't. I get tested." I go, "Dad, you're retired." So finally, you know, he smoked it and he was like, "That was awesome. I haven't been able to do anything in so long." I go, "Dad, you know, who's going to test you? No one's going to drug test you. You're retired." He also worked for the state and owning the limo company, you know, we were randomly drug tested. So it was really, you know, it was really nice. And they've been so helpful. any questions I have or anytime I just want to like cry, I just call him and he's there. He's like, all right, kid, I don't know what to tell you, but you'll figure it out. just, just be compliant, do the right thing so you can sleep.
So in addition to listening to the podcast, how did you prepare for opening a dispensary in a brand new field in New York State?
Well, I guess I read up everything I could. I watched all of the board meetings. I just studied everything, everything that I could on what New York State wanted. I asked as many questions that I could to anybody that knew anything about this, listening to you. And then when I started to meet the vendors, I asked them questions about, what have you seen? What do you know? And kind of just prepared myself for that. We were self-funded, so we didn't have help from anybody else in that aspect either. But the other good thing I had was my landlord actually had one of his other buildings had a dispensary going into it. So he was actually like, let me find out. And he would write down my questions and ask those people. So we were really lucky with getting ourselves ready kind of from there. We had one of the first dispensaries that opened up in Buffalo is good friends with my husband. So they were very helpful. I mean, I really can't say enough about them. So, I appreciate everything that they did for us, and they still help us. Anytime we have any questions, we give them a call because New York State changes our rules and regulations, no matter what industry you're in, they change constantly. Somebody does something stupid, New York State changes it for you. So it's just the way of the world.
So what's been the experience so far? Are you glad you did this?
I absolutely love it. I mean, of course, I love my day job, but I love coming home and I don't need to be at the shop, but I'm at the shop every day. So I mean, I do want a break eventually, but I am really glad that we did open it. And a lot of people will come in and they're like, how was it? How was it getting a license? And it wasn't bad. I mean, New York State, it really, as much as people want to complain about it, and I hate to say it because I am a state worker, it really wasn't horrible. It was not a horrible experience for us. We just had to wait like everybody else, but you have to have your ducks in a row. You have to know what you're doing. And if you know that and you know what you need, you'll be fine, and if you can ask questions and people are willing to answer, everything, lines up and you'll get what you need. If you don't have it, you're obviously not going to get what you're not going to get your license unless you have everything you have to have.
So, if you had any suggestions, I mean, what would your suggestions be for someone who's a licensed applicant, but then also at the state level, any suggestions for OCM, for the governor's office to consider?
For the OCM, well, I think more just having the laws a little bit clearer. That's the biggest thing. I still have a tough time trying to figure out, we want to be as compliant as possible in my store, and anybody's store, I would say, but that's the toughest thing to read. I mean, I can read the ABC laws back and forth all day long. Some people can't, but it's really, if you sit down and you read it, it's not hard. But the OCM laws, sometimes I can't figure out. But they are very gray, and I think that's the toughest thing. But I know this is new, and that's the biggest issue. And I think once everything kind of comes in line, it'll be great. But no, I think that's really the biggest thing, is just kind of having the laws, kind of figuring it out. But I know things are constantly changing, and it's still so new. But yeah, that's really it.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I want to add is, just because we try to educate, two things, CDL and ABC law. So CDL is commercial driver's license,
Yes.
and ABC law is the alcohol beverage control.
Yeah.
All right. So where can people find out more about High Tide? Where can they visit you?
So the best place to visit us is Instagram, because we can post more than Facebook, and that would be the Instagram is High Tide 716.
All right, terrific. Thank you so much, Kristy. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you today.
You as well. I appreciate you.
That's it for this episode of Joint Session Diverse Voices in New York State Cannabis. If you found today's discussion valuable, consider leaving a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. It helps more listeners find the show. Better yet, share it with colleagues, advocates, and anyone interested in the future of cannabis in New York. Joint Session is produced by me, Herb Barbot, together with executive producer Robert Curtis from Simlev Media. Special thanks as always to Cannabis Wire. You can follow us on Instagram at jointsession.pod and on LinkedIn at Joint Session Podcast. If you have any comments, questions, or topic suggestions, reach out to me at herb.jointsession@gmail.com. Until next time, this is Herb Barbot. Thanks for listening.